logic. The second is what you get a degree in, and most people make that based upon who will take you once you get in that school, or what somebody else convinces you to. And the third thing is who you marry, at least the first or second time. And most of those decisions are not based on logic at all. They're based on emotion, but they have the biggest influence on the rest of your life. They control the network that you deal with. They control the whole attitude you have about the world. They control your contribution down the road. So some things I've come to embrace. One of my favorite people to read quotes from was Albert Einstein. I find that the philosophy of Einstein is much more relevant and much more important to me than the mathematics or the physics or the science that he did. I have a good friend in College Station, Marlon Scully, who has a dual appointment between A&M, he's a theoretical physicist, between A&M and Princeton. And he is in Einstein's old office in Princeton. And he said there's 2 file cabinets that have not been changed since the late 20s, 30s when Einstein taught there. And he gets to go through and reads Einstein's notes. And he said his little one-liners, he's begun to collect and write them down. He said this guy he wrote some of the most phenomenal one-liners of anybody I've ever seen in my life. Interesting guy. But the whole idea is the formulation of the problem is more essential than its solution. That's crucial. To be able to define the problem is much more important than the solution. This will come up again in a different slide. It's never, ever, ever about the person who has the answer. It's always about the person who writes the question. The power is rarely ever in the answer. You will always work for the person who writes the question. Get to the point as soon as you can where you write the question. To begin to formulate the question in anything brings about creativity, the ability to move, to change, to add. I have a belief that once we figure out the relationship between these 3 words, then we'll be in charge of our life and our career and our path a whole lot more effectively. If you know how to do something, you'll probably always have a job if it's relevant. If you know how to make something happen, if you know how to sell insurance, there are people who are going to always need insurance salesmen. If you know how to do something, there are people who will seek you to do that. If you know what to do, not just how to do it, but what sequence to make it happen, you'll probably have a chance to be in charge of that. Management comes from knowing what to do when, not just how to do it. So when I begin to prioritize the value of how and what, then I can kind of move up in the world of leadership. And the most important is the people who know why. Who know why we're doing it are always the ones in control. It doesn't matter what the endeavor is, what the vocation is, what the concept is. It always rests with the people at the top, are the ones who spend their life defining why. The more time you spend figuring out why, the more effective you'll be at whatever you do. Why should always precede what or how. So you're beginning to start thinking about a career. Start thinking what's going to be the next phase or the first phase or what your life's going to look like next. I would tell you that during this thinking time of it, spend a lot of time, as much time as you can, thinking about why. When you're comfortable with why, the what and how work very well. When you're not comfortable with why, the what and how don't work very well at all. And another quote that I always liked is that we don't see things